Concealer, so that's why my nails look like that. But yeah, July I feel like was a super fun month in general, and it was also my highest reading month of the year so far. So yay for that. Yay for that. So yeah, let's talk about it. I don't have many physical books to hold up for this month though, but let's go. And I read a good amount of like shorter stories and stuff in this month too, so that's part of why I read this more this month. But I also always feel like reading more in the summer when I'm like outside. One thing about me, I love to just like chill outside, like take a book and sit on the ground outside, like that type of thing, that type of vibe. So yeah. So, and I think in August I'll probably read a lot too. So yeah, let's get into it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below and let me know what you read. Okay, so we have one short story to talk about, and that is Madeline Miller's Galatea. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but it's another Greek mythology-inspired retelling by Miss Madeline Miller. But yeah, this was a short story I read. This was, or you will be seeing this in my reading books recommended by other ASMR artists blog. So Mellow ASMR recommended this book, so shout out to her. And yeah, this was a super interesting, poetic, feminist retelling short story. It deals a lot with like her abusive husband. It's very short. It's only 50 pages, and then there's an afterword, and it's tiny. Like the pages are tiny, so it's super quick. I read it in like one sitting, I'm pretty sure. So if you want like a quick something you can read in one sitting, then this is a great option. But it was also very sad. It deals a lot with like her abusive husband who wanted her to, you know, like be perfect. It's like a lot of the like Greek mythology stories, like this one specifically, like the dude basically thought that all the girls were like hoes. He was basically like obsessed with innocence and like purity and all that. Like he was obsessed. So he wanted a perfect woman, got one made out of stone and whatever. And so in the original, it doesn't give any agency to the woman. And this is Madeline Miller coming back from that and being like, I So fun reading this poetry book. Like, it was simply stunning. It's also pretty short. It's only like 70 pages. So, and then the rest, I don't have the physical copies of, so I wrote them on note cards. Do y'all like that sound? The sound of like shuffling cards, because I 100% do. But let's talk about Mr. Popper's. Mr. Popper's penguins. So this is a kid's book, and my mom read it to us when we were kids. And towards the end of the month, I was wanting to just read some short, sweet, cute, easy to get through books, because I realized I was like way behind, you could say, on my reading goal. I set a goal to read 50 books in 2024, and like I was reading on average like 3 books per month, when the average needed to be like 4. So this is 52 weeks in a year, so at 50 books I would need to write a book almost every week. It's 4 weeks. So yeah, I was just like quote unquote behind, I guess you could say, and you really don't need to take reading goals that seriously, but it's just kind of like a fun thing to do. Like when you hit your goal, it's kind of like yay, slay. So I was like, I can read some short ones and be back on par. So I did. Now I'm back on track. I'm back on the like 4 books a month track currently. Like after this month, I should be fine. But it's just this cute book, I guess, written by, I don't know if this is like a husband and wife, like a couple, or a family members or what, but it's written by Richard and Florence Atwater, and it's a classic again. You're the new classic, you're the new beauty. Since very big, so classic and fantastic. Who remembers that song from this another Cinderella story with Selena Gomez and Drew Seeley? Beautiful. Let me move this from the mic. But yeah, it's basically a cute story about this guy who's obsessed with penguins, and he writes to this like radio station type place that has like an exploration going on in like the Arctic or something with penguins, and they're like, thanks for writing to us, and they send him penguins to take care of. And he's like poor, like him and his wife and kids don't have much money. He paints houses during the summer, and in the winter doesn't really have an income. So then the penguins come and they take the penguins on the road, take the show on the road, and like go through all these adventures, and then they're paid, I think, like $5,000 each time to perform. But then they have to stay in hotels to perform, so then the money goes that way, and like it's kind of like one of those like on and on type things. But yeah, it's super cute. this book did just that. It was very fast-paced. The chapters were very, very short, except for like maybe like one or two the whole book. It sucked you in. I had a lot of theories right away. I'm always trying to figure out things with the movies, shows, books, life things, like whatever. So I was trying to figure out things right away. I ended up guessing like the two major twists in the book, but it was still a fun, fast-paced, cool time. And I definitely want to read another book by Freida McFadden. The Coworker one looks good. So yeah, it was interesting, and I'd recommend if you're looking for like a fun, fast-paced book to get you out of a slump. I will say the ending was kind of like super dark. Like I was like, whoa. It got a little intense at the end. But yeah, as far as thrillers go, like definitely made me think maybe I should read some more thrillers. The only thing is, I feel like the theme with thrillers is you're trying to figure out what happens, and if I figure out what happens soon, then I'll be like, you know. So that's the only thing, but besides that, I do think I would like to start reading more thrillers, and that one I read on my Kindle, Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. Giovanni's Room. So, where's my Kindle so we can have some different texture tapping? So, Giovanni's Room tells the story of the main character David and his basically explorations of sexuality, love, and his place in the world through his relationships with this guy Giovanni and this girl Ellen, or was it Elena? Let's call her Helen. But yeah, so it deals with his relationships with the both of them. It does have a sad ending, so be forewarned if you're reading it. I feel like a lot of classics have really sad endings, and this one is no different in that way. But yeah, I wanted to read this book because I saw a clip from an interview with James Baldwin, and I believe it was Maya Angelou, Queen, and I saw this clip from the interview, and she basically asked him something about sexuality, and it was something along the lines of like, you know, like people have questions about like your whatever, like something to do with sexuality. And he was like, which I think she was like on the same page with him, but he was like, how did he phrase it? He was like, oh, this is what he said. It was so beautiful to me. Like, immediately I was like, I have to read a book by him. But he was like, yeah, I've, in my lifetime, and he was like an older man at this point, and then when this interview took place, definitely recommend looking up this interview or this clip if you don't know what I'm talking about. But he was like, yeah, in my lifetime, I've fallen in love with a handful of guys and a handful of girls, and all that I know at the end of the day is that if I love you, I love you, and if I love you and dodge it, then I die. Like, I was like, that was such a moving quote to me. The quote he said there in that interview, saying, look, all I know is in my life I've loved some girls and I've loved some guys, and all I know is that if I love you, I love you, and if I love you and dodge it, then I die. obsessed with that quote. I love it so much. But yeah, it just felt so beautiful and so sweet to me. It made me feel so seen, and yeah, it was just so beautiful. Beautiful. So beautiful. And yeah, I think that's something I've struggled with a lot in life, is expressing like affection and stuff like that. Like, I typically haven't been good at that, but lately I feel like I've been more open than I was before. So, and yeah, I feel like when he said that, that kind of reaffirmed for me like how I've been feeling at this stage in my life, where I'm like, if I have love for people and I'm not showing it and I'm not communicating it, then what's the point? Like, it's not my love to hold on to when it's for someone else. Like, I'm forcing myself to hold on to something that's not mine and depriving them of something that could be theirs. Because of what? Like, because I'm scared, whatever, you know? Like, it's like, at the end of the day, I don't know. I think there's also the fear of like people thinking you're weird or too eager, too interested, too whatever when you like someone and whatever, or when you care about people, like whether it's romantic or not. But I think at the end of the day, if there's people who think you're weird or whatever for you expressing affection and excitement towards them, then they're not all that anyways, and you know, the next person will love that, and maybe them expressing disgust or whatever and you being genuine and open and whatever will be the push you need to lose interest in them and to find somebody else who does share and reciprocate beautiful care and love and whatever. Like, I just loved the quote so much, it really moved me. So yeah, because of that, I read Giovanni's Room. It was very complicated. I didn't like any of the characters all the way. Like, they were all pretty problematic in their own ways. But I did relate to some things. I think David's feelings, like David really had a hard time in this book of figuring out what he felt for who, like what he felt for people, how he felt for people, whatever. And it was really relatable. Like, when he was with Giovanni, he was like, I love Giovanni, like, this is so new, like, I've never felt anything like this, like, da-da-da-da-da, like, this has unleashed something with me, whatever. Then when he was with Helen, he was like, she like, fits with me, like, she it was narrated with such conviction. It really made you feel the weight of the words. And there were so many beautiful, stunning quotes. Like, it made me wish I had the book, even though, again, like, the plot line, it's like semi-autobiographical. I think it's categorized as literary fiction on, like, when you look it up, but I thought it was semi-autobiographical. But there were just so many, so like I guess you could say, like, plot, like, again, was very dark and sad, and so, like, not something I'd be like, oh, I wanna, I feel like reading this, whatever. But the quotes, the messaging, like, there were so many extremely poetic, beautiful, gorgeous, stunning things written in this book. Like, it was just so stunning. Like, at one point in the book, he was like, I don't know how, sometimes I don't know what it is to feel like a person, like, sometimes I just feel like a sound. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And I messaged my friend, like, oh, here's another quote I like from it, because we were buddy reading this, and she was like, yeah, like, I didn't get what you meant there. And I was like, oh, I feel like that sometimes. But yeah, like, there were just so many beautiful things. It also talks about, like, the immigrant perspective, because his family came from Vietnam. It talks about, like, the, like, war-stricken legacy that his family had to endure. So much about, like, his mother being broken down, in a new country and dealing with all these things. It talked about, like, the nail salon and how apparently a lot of people who work in nail salons get, like, respiratory issues and all these issues from, like, the chemicals, and how it's, like, one of the only jobs that some people can get. Like, one of their family members in this book, like, tried to, like, start a business and kept failing, but then once they opened, like, an ethnic business, then all of a sudden they had all these customers and people wanted to, like, profit off the culture, basically. And so they started selling, like, fake, like, remedies and stuff that they didn't even believe in, because they knew that's all people wanted from them. Like, they were just really, like, poignant, like, heartbreaking things in this book. There was, like, familial abuse. Like, in the beginning of the book, it does detail the mother abusing the son, so the writer, like, the narrator. And so that was pretty intense. I know that is kind of, like, more, like, normalized in some places and with some groups, but they did, like, stand up to her, like, at some point. So yeah, that was really difficult to read, though. And yeah, I think there was, like, a lot of, like, internalized hatred, like, between family members in the book too, which you might be familiar with, like, if you've grown up, like, being a minority and, in different ethnic settings and whatnot. So I thought that was really poignant and interesting. And yeah, there was just a lot. I did find it hard to get through some of the moments with his mom when she was in poor health, or when she was abusing him and whatnot. And then his boyfriend later in the book, the narrator is gay, by the way, and his boyfriend later in the book is a heroin addict at some point, like, becomes addicted to heroin, and spoiler alert, ends up passing from that. So that was really sad. Like, that was difficult to get through too. So some parts with the boyfriend and some parts with the mom that were, like, heavier and darker were difficult to get through. But yeah, I thought it was really beautiful. And yeah, definitely beautifully written. So that is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. Gorgeous. bills, and, you know, like, basically said she didn't like this girl either because of her race. And yeah, then there was like a lot. So she told these different stories from different points of her life that kind of showed different things. And oh my gosh, when she talked about her relationships, this man like racked her up all these bills, and like she like co-signed his car, and then he abandoned it and like had all these fines from it. She paid all this stuff, and then she was still gonna get back together with him afterwards. I was like, oh my gosh, please girl, have self-respect. Like, she told all these stories, and it was kind of tongue-in-cheek, kind of like she was saying like, oh, like I can't believe I did that before, like, oh, that was so crazy, like, but it was like some of the stuff was like very jarring. I was like, oh my gosh. She also talked about like kind of like being a mean girl, and like I was kind of like, damn. She also talked about like going on a tangent that her one friend wasn't gay, whole time he was gay, and she just like couldn't accept it yet, so she like was a bit homophobic at one point too. Like, it was just a whole lot of stuff. Like, so I was kind of like taken aback while reading it, because I was like, oh, this is a lot. And since it was written in like a tongue-in-cheek way, I was kind of like, okay, like, where's the resolution to these things? Like, where's the part where you learned? Like, let's go more into that, and like not just like, oh, that was so silly. Like, so I was kind of like, but yeah, it was interesting. She also went in depth into her essay, which Payless had to pay her for because she was brutally essayed when she worked at their stores, and like it had already happened like at that location before, so they still like didn't put cameras up or anything, so it was like 100% on them, and they had to like pay her. But like, obviously paying up doesn't make that trauma go away. So she talked about that and went in depth into that, so be wary of that if you're reading or listening to it, because it did like, it was very intense. She also talked about now her being with Dwayne Wade, how it is for them to raise black children, and she talked about like the like anxiety about like raising black sons, and how like she tries to like drill in them like this, that, and the third to try to make them a little more safe in our world, which can be so hostile. She talks about like the cops getting called on them in this rich neighborhood, which is something you don't always think about with like famous people and like rich people. Like, you don't always think about that if you're like the only black family in, you know, like a community of like rich white people, then like you don't think about like how your wealth in that instance doesn't necessarily buy you safety. Like, her boys got the cops called on them while taking a walk. Like, so that was interesting as well. I think there was good perspective there. But of course, like, uncomfy, like no one wants to talk about it, but like it's a thing. So yeah, she did go into that as well. And yeah, it was just an interesting book overall. I did want to see more so her going back into like where she learned from some of the crazy stuff she did or said or thought when she was a kid, like kind of how she grew through that and like self-progress, instead of just like, oh, I used to think that. Like I kind of wanted to be like, okay, where did the growth come into play? But yeah, I don't know, overall it was an interesting book. And then I did read, is this my only romance of the month? I think so. And that is At Her Service by Amy Spalding. So this is a queer sapphic lesbian romance. So it's like a rom-com styled romance too. It's fun. It was my first book I've read by Amy Spalding, and it was super fun. The main character was like this very unorganized, like very frazzled girl who's an assistant in Hollywood, isn't being taken seriously romance books, I like to see the characters together for a while. If there's a side plot, I like it to be clear. But besides that, it was fun. There were some really cute quotes. So yeah, if you're in the mood for like a fun rom-com-y type romance book and queer, then maybe read this one. I do want to read another book by Spalding. I think I would need to be in a certain type of mood for this rom-com-y type of book though, because I really don't read like funny books like much at all, and I also don't like, I don't know, I do watch some sitcoms, but they have to be like old sitcoms, like, but yeah, but like the whole like comedy thing just like isn't really my genre, so I think I would have to be like in a certain type of mood for the rom-com-y romance. Like there were points where I was kind of like, alright, like let's get to it with this. But yeah, if you like that genre, then maybe give this a try. I think there was a little spice too. A little spice. Spice. And then we have one educational book. So we have Polysecure by Jessica Byrne. So this was an educational book that dealt with attachment styles and was like mostly really about attachment styles, but made it inclusive to poly people, so people in like polyamorous relationships or whatnot. So I thought that was interesting. The attachment styles info was so interesting. Like I took so many notes on like anxious attachment styles, avoidant attachment styles, whatever. And like based on this, like I kind of came to the conclusion that I probably had like an avoidant, and I forget what the one was. That was like a mix of avoidant and something else. But I kind of came to the conclusion that I probably had those two attachment styles currently. But one thing I really liked about the author too is she said like, okay, like attachment styles are not like an identity. Like you can have one attachment style today and a different one in 5 years after, you know, self-reflection, whatever. Like it's not who you are. And she brought up how like sometimes identities can be helpful, but sometimes they can also be harmful in a mindset type of way. So she brought up that like you can change your attachment style. You can get to a place of like a healthy attachment style, or you could, you know, maybe feel more insecure at one point or another, you know, just in different points of life basically. So I thought that was really interesting. There wasn't as much focus on the like poly aspect as I thought there was going to be, like based on the title.